Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Pod Save Chocolate. My name is Clay Gordon. I'm your host, and I'm also the creator and the moderator of TheChocolateLife.com. This episode of Pod Save Chocolate is going to be talking about what's coming up this coming Monday, which is July 7th. And July 7th is World Chocolate Day. Before I get into that, I want to remind everybody that this episode of Pod Save Chocolate, like every episode of Pod Save Chocolate, is sponsored by the members of The Chocolate Life. Here's the homepage of The Chocolate Life right now. I produce all of this content, and it is supported by the members of The Chocolate Life, and I give it away to the world for free. You can go to TheChocolateLife.com, and you can support the work that I do, either by becoming a free member or by becoming a premium member. And your support of the work that I do is greatly appreciated. I am very, very serious when I say that. Your work is greatly appreciated. Your support gives me the encouragement, and it makes it possible for me to do whatever it is that I'm doing here on a regular basis. I want to remind everybody before I get started as well that you can go into the live chat on YouTube or the comments on LinkedIn and Facebook, and you can let me know where in the world you are connecting from. I'll get that shout out up on screen. And also, if you have a question or a comment that you'd like to make today about the contents of the episode, you can put them in the comments as well, and I will ask them, get them up on screen, and respond to them as best I can in the course of the episode. And if I can't respond to them during the course of the episode, I will respond to them in the comments in the post on The Chocolate Life. And with that out of the way, before I get started, I want to, in all seriousness, do something that I don't normally do, which is to step into the world of American politics. I will often talk about the politics in the chocolate industry more broadly, but I don't necessarily get into American politics. But today is the 4th of July. It is Independence Day here in the United States. And there is a connection between the American independence movement and chocolate that people may not be aware of, which is that after the Boston Tea Party, which was a rebellious event where large quantities of tea, which were on ships in Boston Harbor, were dumped off the ships into the harbor as a show of defiance for not being interested in paying the taxes which were imposed on imported tea. Obviously, tea doesn't grow in North America. And what replaced tea? And the answer is, well, coffee was just coming up on the scene, but also chocolate. So chocolate can be considered to be a beverage of the American independence movement. It is a little bit earlier that we have what would become Baker's Chocolate, was making chocolate in Western Massachusetts and distributing it throughout the colonies. That was one of their main innovations. How do we make a product that can be distributed beyond the local area? So I want to call attention to that connection between the American independence movement and chocolate as a beverage historically. But the other thing that I want to do, and this is where I'm going to get into the overt aspect of things, is that today is the 4th of July. Today is Independence Day. And so in some respect, it is the original No King's Day. Now, people may be aware, No King's Marches, which happened in the month of June. But this is the reason why we are celebrating the 4th of July is in defiance to the King of England. And as you are celebrating the 4th of July today, number one, hopefully you're going to incorporate chocolate into your celebration now that you're aware of the connection to it, but also think about the original meaning of the 4th of July and what it means. For chocolate makers and confectioners, the throwing on tariffs onto classes of goods, cocoa beans, cocoa nibs, cocoa butter, liquor, and equipment, which is imported, is going to add an additional burden to the already increasing costs of producing chocolate just due to the rise of cocoa beans. So let's consider today, step back and think about what it means and how you plan to celebrate Independence Day, the 4th of July, and who it is you're celebrating and what it is you're celebrating as you are shooting off fireworks or whatever it is you're gathering with friends and colleagues today. Right? And think about that in the context of what's going on in the American political system right now and how it affects almost everyone in the world going forward. So I just ask that you go and think about that for a while, um, because it's important. All right, so with that out of the way, let's go take a look at what the topic is today. And so again, this is the homepage of The Chocolate Life. And for every single episode of Pod Save Chocolate, I put together a post on The Chocolate Life. Let me get rid of the banner here so we can make it a little easier to see. And if you are interested, you can click on the archives link at the top, and there is a link to every single episode of Pod Save Chocolate, and there's a separate post for episodes 1 through 100. But let's get back to today's post. So this is a run of show, right? It's going to include links to things that are links to the things that I'm talking about today, and it's a reminder to myself of a sort of a script without being a script, because most of this stuff is impromptu as I go forward and improvise. So, what is World Chocolate Day? Why does it exist? And that is one of the main topics that we're going to talk about today. Today's episode is going to be a little bit shorter than normal, but what is World Chocolate Day? So, World Chocolate Day is a manufactured holiday. And that is why I actually use the phrase manufactured sweetness over here. World Chocolate Day is a manufactured holiday. Now, the conceit of the holiday is that to July 7th, which is Monday, represents an important day in the history of chocolate as the day in which chocolate arrived in Europe. And it turns out that there is no historical evidence for July 7th, 1550, which is the specific day that World Chocolate Day was created to commemorate, has any basis in reality. And so if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, there's a series of resources. So one of them is from a JSTOR, which is a collection of research documents. We have an article which is posted on Cocoa Runners. We have the History of Chocolate article on Wikipedia. Also a history of chocolate at thehistorychannel.com. A couple of independent articles, as well as an article on Wired magazine. And what you'll do is you will learn, if you read these articles, is that there is in fact a consensus that says chocolate, or at least cocoa beans, arrived in the New World well prior to 1550. Now, the oldest theory goes back to as early as 1502 or 1503, that time period, which is, after Columbus was first introduced to cocoa beans by intercepting a Mayan trading canoe off the coast of Honduras, that he would have brought cocoa beans back to Spain with him at the end of his voyage. So we're talking about early 1500s then. There's also some documentation that there were some Kekchi Maya who were brought to Spain from the Americas in 1544, and they would have brought with them cocoa beans. But if you also take a look at some of these other articles, what you'll find is that there are dates in the 1530s and before, which is where there is documented evidence that chocolate, which would have been processed cocoa beans at the time without sugar, was brought back to Spain from the Americas. So the entire conceit of the day is not founded in history, right? It's a manufactured holiday which is which was created to provide still yet another excuse to eat chocolate or to celebrate chocolate. And I think that makes a difference, is that it is designed to celebrate chocolate in a way that some other holidays were not designed from the beginning to do this. Right. So, right, and as it says here on the post on the Chocolate Life, the emphasis has changed. So there has been some increasing emphasis by large concerns, mainly big chocolate companies, to to drive the narrative, to control the narrative in particular ways. And so it might be that the messaging by big companies this year around World Chocolate Day might be to think about issues related to sustainable production or ethical production and things like that. There is no single official organizing body which drives the creation of observance traditions around World Chocolate Day. So just those two things are really important. As it says here in the TLDR, which is associated with this topic, World Chocolate Day is an informal celebration without any formal recognition by international bodies. So it's not recognized by the UN. It's not a UNESCO thing. They do World Heritage sites and things like that. There is no UN designation as an international holiday. There's no treaty or global institution that officially endorses July 7th as World Chocolate Day. Right? It's so we're doing this out of a shared love of chocolate. Right? So also, why July 7th? And I've already covered this. There is no historical evidence which backs up the claim that there is some notable event that happened on the 7th of July, 1550, related to the introduction of chocolate into Europe, and specifically Spain. At that time, Spain was the European country that was colonizing Latin America, South America, and Central America, what are now Central and South America. And so there would have been no commerce in cocoa beans or chocolate back to any other part of Europe in the early 1500s. So why the 7th of July? And the real answer is that nobody knows. It was a mistaken impression behind some people who were interested in the idea of creating World Chocolate Day, which gets to the next point, which is, when was World Chocolate Day inaugurated and by whom? Right? And let's answer that second question first, which is that no one knows. There is no convincing documentary evidence which gives us sufficient reason to be able to point to any individual person and say, this is the person who created World Chocolate Day. It may be that what happened is that some content creator, some blogger, some influencer somewhere got an idea, the mistaken idea that the 7th of July was a thing and that they wanted to create this day in memoriam, and it got published somewhere, and then it got picked up by big entities, right? And things happen like that. World Chocolate Day is an idea that went viral in 2009 before we really understood the concept of virality. Right? And it may be that there was a public interest in this, and they glommed onto it, and then big companies became aware of what was going on and decided, yeah, this is a thing we're going to do, without really doing the research on understanding if the 7th of July meant anything when it comes to the history of chocolate. If anybody has read The True History of Chocolate, I didn't see anything in there, or has any other source that can be reliably pointed to the 7th of July as being a notable date when it comes to the history of chocolate arriving in Europe, please let me know. Go into the comments, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, or put them on the comments. If you're a member of the Chocolate Life, you can put them in the comments to today's post. Please go and let me know. I would be interested in it. I performed a number of different searches using a number of different search modalities online. These include using ChatGPT, Google Gemini, search engine DuckDuckGo, going and searching through places like Google Scholar and other repositories of research documents where these things might exist. And it turns out I couldn't find anything. And that same set of research tools, and broadly scoped, doesn't turn up the name of anyone, right? You can definitively point to and say, here is why a World Chocolate Day was number one, created, and by whom. The only thing we do know with relative certainty is that the first broad observance of World Chocolate Day was in 2009. So 2025 is the 16th anniversary of the first World Chocolate Day. So the TLDR on this is that World Chocolate Day is a decentralized, well, no, there's a decentralized account of its founding, so no single founder, right, for the holiday. And it was effectively crowdsourced, which it went viral and people picked it up and said, this is a cool idea. Let's go and do that. Let's go and work on that. We don't know why, we don't know who. The only thing we know is when. Right? That's it, right? And it turns out that there's, it's like, World Chocolate Day. Aren't there lots of chocolate holidays? And it turns out the answer is yes. There are many, 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 many chocolate holidays. So we've been talking about World Chocolate Day on July 7th, right? So all the details about that are above this toggle. But there is something called International Chocolate Day, which is on September 13th here in the United States. And it might be confusing. People would go, World Chocolate Day, International Chocolate Day. Are they the same thing? It turns out that they're not. They are on different days, right? And we've talked about how World Chocolate Day just sprang into existence, right? But International Chocolate Day was created by organizations, including the National Confectioners Association, which is a trade group here in the United States. September 13th is, in fact, Milton Hershey's birthday. And so there's a direct connection between Milton Hershey's birthday and a way to celebrate Milton Hershey and his contributions to the history of chocolate in the United States, and the 13th of September. But there is no connection between World Chocolate Day and International Chocolate Day other than the fact that they celebrate chocolate. Now, there is also a National Chocolate Day, which is celebrated on October 8th. This was also created by the National Confectioners Association. There's a separate there are two National Chocolate Days, right? So this is really confusing. So one is in October and one of which is in December, right? In addition to that, we have a National Cocoa Day, a National Milk Chocolate Day. There's a National Dark Chocolate Day. I know there's a National Milkshake Day. I don't know if there's a National Chocolate Milkshake Day, but there are, these other holidays associated with cocoa and chocolate. And then I did a little bit more, just taking some text from my research, talking about the NCA. Created October 28th as National Chocolate Day, not December 28th, but October 28th. And why they're both on the 28th, who knows? They also actively promote September 13th as International Chocolate Day, but they also created a National Choose Your Chocolate Day on September 16th to encourage exploration of different chocolate types, which you'll see there. So it turns out that we have all of these chocolate holidays, which are designed as ways where companies can go and promote the consumption of chocolate. And what I want to do is for the rest of the episode, which is, again, this is not going to be a long episode today. It's the 4th of July. It's a beautiful day here. I want to get out and about. We had rain here in the mountains in central Arizona yesterday. And so it is cool and it is a little bit humid, but there will be water in the streams and it's going to be a lovely day to get out and about. And that's what it is that I'd like to do. What I want to suggest is that, well, I think it's not a bad idea to go and think about having a day, a World Chocolate Day, where all of us can get together and celebrate chocolate individually and in groups. to share our love of and love for chocolate by calling attention to the things that we like about it, the things that need to be improved about it. Also, those are all good things, right? To do this, what I want to suggest is that you think about how you celebrate chocolate the other 347 days a year where there is no explicit chocolate holiday. And I'm making up the number 347. I don't know the number. I have to go through the list of chocolate holidays in the United States and the rest of the world. So Ghana has its own day. Latvia has its own day. They're different. There are different places on the calendar. There are many national celebrations of chocolate that are tied to local culture. All of these things are really, 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 really important. Uh, If what it is that we're doing is we're consuming chocolate mindfully, right, that we sit down and we think about how chocolate got from the farm, right, to our mouth. Right? And I, if you're like me, right, you don't need an excuse to celebrate chocolate this way. So even though millions of people are going to use Monday as an excuse to purchase cheap industrial chocolates or donuts. There's an American donut chain, Krispy Kreme, that historically has had a discount program on chocolate flavored donuts on World Chocolate Day, right? I am going to be celebrating on Monday, World Chocolate Day, mindfully. And by what that I mean is I'm going to be paying attention to how I consume the chocolate. So I may be updating my normal or I may be changing my normal morning coffee ritual. I may replace it with just a straight hot chocolate or be making a mocha with the coffee. But as a part of that, I will be thinking about how, well, number one, the recipe that I'm using and what's going on in process of making the individual steps that are used to make it. I have a milk frother. I often use the milk frother to heat up milk and to dissolve or melt the chocolate into that. Throw that on top of a coffee. That might be the way I do it. But I am going to be thinking about what it is that I'm doing over the course of the ritual which I go through in making that beverage. And I use an AeroPress to make my coffee. So there is a direct connection between in my ritual. So I am putting the ground coffee into the AeroPress. I'm pouring the water. I am stirring it up. I go through this ritual. I press it. So there is this direct connection, uh, which is very different from just uh, putting the ground coffee into the basket of a brewer or push a button or put a pod into a machine or push a button. Um, I that aspect of my coffee ritual is really important. Is the mechanical process that the AeroPress requires me to go through to make the chocolate. I'm I don't grind my own coffee beans. I don't roast my own coffee beans, but I do act. Um, I do enjoy, right, the physical process of using the AeroPress and finally doing the actual pressing. Adding chocolate to that is one way to think about, and again, thinking about how the cocoa beans made their way from the farm, right, across the ocean, maybe, right, to some place where the chocolate was manufactured to my pantry. And I have chocolate from a number of different producing countries. I have liquor, I have couverture, and I'm going to be mindful of what I choose and how the experiences of are going to be different, right? And I'm thinking about it right now. I could make an iced hot chocolate. Right now, I'm thinking that sounds pretty good. I may get some, ice into a milk into an ice cube tray, and think about what I might do to take some of the chocolate. I'm just, I'm going to be thinking about it, and that's what we want to do. That's what I want to encourage you to do. Is not just mindless consumption, This is one of the challenges I have with big chocolate and their appropriation of the day. So there'll be a discount on this chocolate. They want to get you to an anonymous big box store where you can go in and see, your favorite candy bar or some candy bar marked down a ridiculous amount. And the idea is the mass quantities, which is a reference to a Dan Aykroyd movie. I'm forgetting which one. Coneheads, right? That's the mass quantities reference. Saturday Night Live Coneheads reference. Not consume mass quantities, right? But consider what it is that you're doing, the impact of the choices that you're making, and how you're consuming what it is you're consuming. So I've talked about my morning coffee ritual, and that's where I'm going to be focusing on celebrating the day. Now, I've just learned that even though it is World Chocolate Day, I have a very early morning call. So I have a 7 a.m. call with, which is a new business development call. And then that's immediately followed at 8 o'clock by another new business development call. So my morning is going to be really fractured. My morning routine is going to be really fractured. But I'm going to make sure that I am clear on what it is that I'm doing. And I hope that you will do that as well. There's an aspect of this. I have been extremely fortunate in my chocolate life that since 2003, I have managed to, no, I've been privileged. I think that's a better way to think about it, to visit cocoa farms in more than 20 countries of the roughly 65 to 70 cocoa producing countries that there are in the world. So I've visited more than 20, and most of them are in the Americas. There are very few countries in this part of the world that produce cocoa that I haven't visited. So that's huge for me. And I have been privileged to be able to taste chocolate made with cocoa beans, which come from most of the other producing countries in the world. And so as I sit down and I think about chocolate, again on World Chocolate Day, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a chocolate which has a specific bean origin. And if I have, and I'm likely to do this because I'm thinking about it, I'm going to let the flavor of the chocolate that I have chosen, right, um, guide my thinking. I'm going to let the flavor experiences transport me back to the cocoa farms and chocolate factories. I'm going to celebrate not just the chocolate, which I think is important. I'm going to celebrate not just the chocolate, but I'm going to be selling the people, right? The people that I know, the people that I don't know, right? Anyone who has had a hand, right, in getting the chocolate, the cocoa bean from the farm to the factory, to my pantry, and then to my mouth. And that's what I mean by mindfulness. And I think that's the way to celebrate the day, to be careful in a curated selection of what you're going to be doing, and then thinking about what this all means to you and to the other people involved in getting the chocolate to where you are. But how do you plan to celebrate World Chocolate Day? I mean, do you have, number one, is it on your radar? Right. So if you're in the comments, let me know. Was World Chocolate Day on your radar? Did you think about July 7th? Or did you run across this post on Facebook or LinkedIn? It showed up in your feed. You're a member of the Chocolate Life. I sent it to you. So if you are a member of the Chocolate Life, one thing I do is that I send you the link to every single one of these Pod Save Chocolate episodes. You get some advance notice, not always the same advance notice, but usually at least 24 hours advance notice of what's going on. And the schedule is set. I tend to do these at Tuesdays and Fridays at 11 a.m. local time. Arizona, we're in Mountain Standard Time at the moment, which just happens to be the same thing as Pacific Daylight Time, right? Um, so, what are you thinking? Number one, did you know anything about World Chocolate Day? Was it on your radar? Did you know anything about the history of World Chocolate Day? Did you do care about World Chocolate Day? How about any of the other national or international chocolate days? Do you celebrate them at all? Are they in, or do you mark any part of your calendar associated with them? I know that there are many other holidays, right? Hanukkah is one where there is a specific chocolate gifting ritual. There may are there Valentine's Day is obviously there's a huge chocolate gifting ritual associated. You may have your own. How do you celebrate chocolate? Right? How do I mean? And if we've talked about this right now, and you're hearing about World Chocolate Day for the first time, are you going to change your plans for Monday? Not everybody is in the United States. We have obviously, as I started off today's episode with. Today is July 4th. It is in American Independence Day. I'm in central Arizona at a little town called Prescott, and we have the United States' oldest continuously running rodeo. So not only is there a 4th of July parade, but there's a huge rodeo crowd in today. We don't always have the convergence of those two things on a Friday. So, it's a big deal here in the little town where I live in. But what about you? Right? For me, right, while there is always an element of personal enjoyment, right? So I'm looking for chocolate that puts a smile on my face, especially when I'm eating recreationally as opposed to professionally. If I'm a judge or somebody's paying me for my opinions, I have to be an equal opportunity chocolate fan. I have to give every chocolate that I taste the opportunity to impress or disappoint, right, without any prejudgment. That is my goal. That's my attitude going into judging. But when I'm not tasting professionally, what I'm looking for is a chocolate that puts a smile on my face. So on a day like Monday, which is World Chocolate Day, it's a recreational eating day for me. I am going to be going and selecting a chocolate that puts a smile on my face or has some sort of connection to my history. Now, I've asked this question on LinkedIn, and people have told me about some of the things that they plan to do. So if you go over, if you're a member of LinkedIn, you can go to that post. If you're watching me today from LinkedIn, I only see the number of people who are watching on YouTube. I don't know the number of people who are connecting on LinkedIn and Facebook. So, I don't know how many of you are there in the world who are listening to me in real time. But please go into the comments and let me know what you plan to do to celebrate World Chocolate Day. Or is this the first time you're hearing it? Or is this it? Oh, I'm letting you know again that it's happening. And you can think about what World Chocolate Day might mean to you. I told you how I plan to celebrate, right? But please let me know how you plan to celebrate. Or what do you think? Do you think we need still yet another excuse to quote unquote celebrate chocolate? Do we need still yet another excuse to go out and buy a candy bar or to buy a confectionery product where we are completely disintermediated from the people who labored on the ground in the farms, right, in producing countries to get the cocoa beans and start them on their journey to your mouth and my mouth. As we think about these things, right, we need, I think that we want to be more understanding of what's going on in the broader world of cocoa and chocolate. Now, so for example, you may not know, and I will be doing a future episode of Pod Save Chocolate where I will talk about some of these things, is that there was a recent watering down of the EUDR, the European Deforesting Regulations. There was a watering down of EUDR reporting requirements because after all this time, and we're only, 5 months. So yeah, we're less than 6 months away. So it's December 31st is when they will go into effect. Um, is that the European Union has realized that the reporting requirements are onerous, right? To the point where it may not be possible, uh, not only for individual companies and producing countries to be able to generate all the data and to be able to produce all the data and massage all the data and get it into a form that the EUDR wants or the EU wants. But the EU and member states, as well as the EU as a governing body, doesn't have the resources to actually follow up, right, and audit what is being submitted to them. They don't have the computer resources. They don't have the personnel resources. It's been an abominable um, process of unintended consequences, and they finally come to the point where they realize that we're not going to be able to implement um, the EUDR as the legislation has been written. And so they're changing the reporting requirements. And I'm wondering if this is going to have a domino effect. So on Monday, when I have some quiet time, I'm going to be thinking about, what is the future of the EUDR? Has all of the hand wringing and angst and time that we've spent thinking about all the money that has been spent on implementing systems to implement the EUDR, to implement EUDR compliance, with virtually none of that money being spent to improve the lives and livelihoods of cocoa farmers and to improve the productivity, the health and productivity of cocoa farms, and to address issues associated with climate change. None of that, right, has happened. Has all of the time been spent, been wasted? My thought, the answer is no, it hasn't been entirely wasted, because what it has done is it has put a spotlight. So more people are more aware of the challenges associated with deforestation, not just in chocolate, but in coffee and palm oil and timber and cattle and other agricultural commodities in and around the world. Right. So I don't think it has been a complete waste of time, but for me, right, I think that the wasted opportunity is that all of the tens of millions of dollars, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, that have gone into implementing the electronic systems and reporting system associated with the UDR, very little of it. I mean, maybe the benefit the farmer's getting is now they have GPS polygon maps of the boundaries of their farms, and they know, and they can use that in some way, right? Maybe they will know whether their farm is in a protected region or outside a protected region. I don't know what benefit, on a tangible day-to-day basis that is for farmers. But if we had spent the hundreds of millions of dollars on actually implementing programs that would have addressed issues related to deforestation and climate change, that money would have been better spent in the long run. Could we do vegetative propagation to be able to increase the productivity of farms by replacing old trees with younger stock, with the goal of producing the same amount of cocoa on less land, so that we can return land to other uses, maybe biodiversity corridors, maybe to mixed planting, so that we can replace forests that have been cut down. Those hundreds of millions of dollars could have been better spent. The larger issue, and again, this is something that I'm going to be thinking about when it comes to the EUDR on World Chocolate Day, is the knock-on effect, because the EUDR is part of a larger European initiative around corporate social responsibility reporting. So the corporate sustainability due diligence directive, the corporate sustainability reporting directive. There's a bunch of legislation which affects cocoa and chocolate, which is related to the EUDR. I mean, they're not synonymous with, but they are in, to use my favorite portmanteau created by uh, coined by Ted Nelson, who has also coined the term hypertext and hypermedia, is intertwingled, which is a portmanteau of intertwine and intermingled. So all of these things are intertwingled, right? And because of that, pulling them apart and understanding how, for want of a better term, dumbing down one might have the effect of dumbing down the others. And how has all the time, all the attention, all the resources which have been devoted, human resources and monetary resources that have been devoted to developing and implementing these systems, what is that actually doing to solve the root problems that they are addressing? And the answer is they don't solve any of the root problems related to are we treating farmers well? Are we treating the land that these farmers farm well? And the answer is no. And that's what I propose, that as you are celebrating World Chocolate Day and as you are going through whatever chocolate ritual you're going through, that whatever it is that you're doing on World Chocolate Day, you be mindful, right? You be mindful of what it the immense privilege, right, that you are enjoying when you can sit down at any time, irrespective of the weather outdoors. I mean, down in Phoenix, let me just take a quick. I'm up in northern Arizona, central Arizona, so we're going to get to about 80, 82. No, about maybe 90 degrees today. Not quite 90 degrees, but in Phoenix, it's going to get to over 100 today. Right. So no matter what the weather is like outside, that diversion is no matter what the weather is like outside. Here, at least in the United States, we are incredibly privileged in that we can enjoy chocolate whenever we want to. There are at least a half a dozen stores which are within 15 minutes walking distance from where I am, where I can go buy choose from an incredibly broad range of chocolates. We even have a specialty confectioner, a chocolatier here in town, so I can indulge my desire for chocolate, right? However it is that I want to, right? Which is not something that everybody has the opportunity to do. We are incredibly privileged when it comes to the kind of chocolate that we have access to and how we can enjoy it. And so, thinking again, this is the last time I'm going to mention this. Thinking about World Chocolate Day, think mindfully, consume mindfully, celebrate mindfully, understand the privilege that we have here in North America and in Europe and in other places, for the variety that we have, the quantity that we have, without the demand to be able to go and do the work required to go wrest, right, cocoa beans from the land and from the trees and do the transformation into products that we love. Think about those things mindfully as you are celebrating World Chocolate Day on this coming Monday, July the 7th. And with that, that's all I have to say today. This is probably the shortest episode of Pod Save Chocolate that I have done. I do want to remind everybody, if you're, wherever you're listening to, if you have anything to say, you can go into the comments. If you are, in fact, a member of the Chocolate Life, here's today's post. But if you're a member of the Chocolate Life, you can scroll all the way down to the bottom of the post. And what you can do is you can see there's a lot of stuff on the post that I talked about, but there's stuff that I didn't open up at all. But there is, in fact, a member discussion at the bottom. So if you are a member of the Chocolate Life and you are logged in, you can add your thoughts at any time. Doesn't need to be today. It could be over the weekend. It could be on Monday, but share them with me. If you follow me on LinkedIn, or if you don't follow me on LinkedIn, please do. But you can go on LinkedIn. There's a post about this, and you can go add your thoughts to the post on LinkedIn. Or if you are following me on Facebook, within the chocolatelife.com page, or the Salones Internacionales de Cacao y Chocolate group, right? Or La Vida Coco group, go there. Let me know what it is that you're thinking about, how you plan to spend the day. I read all the comments, I respond to all of the comments. And that is today's episode, which was sponsored by you, the members of the Chocolate Life. I produce all this content, and it is supported by the members, free members and premium members. and I give it to the world for free, so that anybody can watch it and repurpose it. So you can go to YouTube and you can intermix all of the things that I'm talking about. Download, change, clip, whatever it is that you want to do. It's all made available to free. Most of the posts on the Chocolate Life are available without restrictions, although there are some posts that are tagged as members only. So the member newsletters and some other content. Um, so if you want to be able to see all those, you do need to become a member and support me. If you do want to comment on the Chocolate Life, then you also need to become a member. But until then, everybody, I want to say thanks for joining me today. And everybody have a safe and sane 4th of July. If you're going to be around fireworks with friends, family, be careful because they can be dangerous. And hopefully on Monday, with World Chocolate Day, you will be enjoying some chocolate by yourself, with friends, with family, but enjoying it mindfully. And until the next episode of Pod Save Chocolate, everybody remember that if you're working with chocolate, or you're just enjoying chocolate and you're not having fun, um, maybe you're doing it wrong. And again, until the next time, everybody, ciao.